Discounting can ultimately get people to buy faster and more often, but it is the one thing that you are doing today that is for sure going to drive the nail in the coffin of your sportswear business if you do not get it in check. Because let's face it, everyone likes a good deal. But what happens after the deal? What do you train customers to think, to do, and how do you act, or how do you expect them to behave in relationship to your business? Because ultimately what you're telling your customers are, do not buy this product at full price because it's not worth it. And we have to discount in order to actually incentivize you to buy. That means that what we had priced the product in the first place wasn't the actual value. So a lot of sportswear brands assume that the reason that they're not making sales is because their product isn't discounted enough. What they are subconsciously training the customer is to wait. They tell them, don't buy this at full price, wait until we give a 20% off discount, and then that's when you can buy it. And the more often that you do this, the more readily that customers expect you to drive sales. They might be thinking to themselves, if I just wait another 2 weeks, another month, then surely they're going to do a birthday sale, they're going to do a whatever sale, they're going to do a Super Bowl sale, whatever it is that they have gotten used to from your brand. In the short term, it works, but in the long term, it really impacts your gross profit, your net profit margins, and it completely throws off your business's cash flow. So in today's episode, we're going to be looking at why you should not be discounting. We'll also be evaluating real world companies that you look up to and how discounting has hurt their bottom line over the last couple of years, and what you can do instead of discounting that can still get customers to feel a sense of urgency, to move towards your product, and to give your product a higher perceived value so that they can buy from you. And without further ado, my name is Shadi. I'm the co-founder and creative director of FittDesign, and over the last 10 years, I've worked with thousands of sportswear brands to help them take their ideas and to turn them into physical products. So I've learned a thing or two about why ultimately discounting does not work and what you should do instead. Number one is that discounting ultimately does lower the price, but it also lowers the perceived value. Let's just say that you had leggings that were selling for $98, yet consistently customers see them marked down as 30%. A customer might come to you in September, they see them marked as 30%. They might come to you again in February or January, and they see them marked as 30%. So subconsciously, the customer is no longer thinking this product or this legging is worth $98. They're thinking that it's worth 60 something dollars. This is the difference between your actual value and your perceived value. When you're consistently discounting over a long and prolonged period of time, what you're telling customers is that this product is not worth the full price. The more accurate reflection of the full price is the discounted price, which then becomes the baseline. And if you do this for long enough, customers then expect a discount on top of the discount. Number two is that discounting shifts the conversation from, do I want this product? Is this a product that I want? To, is this product now cheap enough or cost effective enough for me to actually justify purchasing? Because if customers are used to you consistently discounting, this hurts the desire to actually buy at full price. And what that does is it trains customers to go to, okay, is this now discounted enough? Is this worth the price, or should I wait till the sale to buy it? And you don't want customers to ask as well if you're going to end up discounting more later because you have a habit of doing it. Perhaps you discount on standard at 20% throughout the year, and then on certain occasions you discount to 40 to 50%. Not only are you discounting and removing the perceived value of your product, whereas you would have been better off actually lowering your price from whatever it was to the original 20% discount, but you're also then training customers to wait to further erode away your actual customer value and your product value. And ultimately, when your product goes from being value-based to price-based, you are no longer negotiating based on quality and value, you're negotiating based on price. And that is a losing battle that you'll never win because there's always going to be a cheaper competitor out there. Number three is that discounts can actually create sales, but subconsciously they train the wrong consumer behavior. Because the biggest danger is not in not making or making one sale. The danger is in training. You are ultimately reinforcing customers to wait to receive a discount on their product before they purchase, because they may browse a product at full price. They may like that product, they may wishlist it, but they'll wait until they are able to secure a discount in order to buy. And the reason that this becomes difficult for customers to buy in the future is because your full price demand gets weaker. If you're operating based on specific margins in terms of how you price, you are no longer being able to achieve those margins consistently. So you subconsciously have to do a write-off of 20%, 30%, or whatever you typically discount in order to make your numbers work, which is very dangerous. Then you have inventory that starts building in different seasons of the year. If customers are used to you discounting at specific times of year, you'll find that price will spike in those moments, but price or demand will actually stay relatively flat in other moments, which can be a huge burden on your cash flow. If you cannot consistently drive sales throughout the year and you have to rely on sales to provide that cash injection, that level of instability can be killer for businesses. This is also where your margins get squeezed, and this is where, and definitely the most dangerous, your brand becomes less desirable. You start to become something that is looked over rather than coveted. Number 4, even Nike is an example of how the large brands, the behemoths of the industry, are not immune to the effects of markdown. And Nike is a clear example of what happens when markdowns become a consistent cleanup tool. In the fiscal year of 2023, quarter 1, Nike reported inventories of up to $9.7 billion of pretty much stale or dead stock landing in their warehouses that they couldn't move and that ultimately had on hand that were tied down. And they reported that the majority of this was because of markdowns that they had done in the years prior that had trained customers to wait for a better and better deal. Not only did this tie up a ton of inventory that they weren't selling, but also it drove their gross profit margins down by around 220 basis points over that year, which is because of the higher markdowns that you had from Nike direct options or Nike outlet options, where customers were going and seeking these better sales, but were then also being trained that they could get Nike products for cheaper in other places. Not only is this detrimental to a business long term, because you're tying up inventory into assets that you're no longer moving, so those assets ultimately can become liabilities, because over time, unlike with diamonds and other sort of natural resources, or even gold, for example, over the long run, your fashion product, which is cyclical and tied to a specific moment in time, can actually become less valuable to the point where it goes from even being stale to dead stock that you cannot sell and that you may even just have to liquidate for whatever it costs, or sometimes even just get rid of in the kilos, the literal kilos. And number 5 is that Under Armour, for example, shows us what happens when a brand has to reset after a period of heavy promotion. So Under Armour is a very useful tool for us to analyze, because in 2025, Under Armour said that their revenue was down from around 15 to 17% from the year prior, simply because of the reset that they had to do, because they had trained customers for so long to wait for heavy markdowns. And what they ended up having to do was to retrain customers that they could no longer get those products at a cheaper price, and they had completely cut out discounting or minimized discounting in the year of 2025. And customers were entering stores expecting some sort of discount and having gotten used to it, only to realize that that discount was no longer available and be refusing to buy, almost like a psychological reset that they had to go through in order to feel justified in buying. And over 2025, where customers were used to these sales, not only did Under Armour aim to push up its average sale price, but even in doing so, that couldn't compensate for the fact that just customers were no longer looking and willing to buy from Under Armour at those more elevated prices, which for them, they used to see as elevated. But for Under Armour, that's just what the price of the product was to begin with before discounting. And discounting is not automatically bad. Sometimes it's used correctly, can be a tool to help you clear up old seasonal colors that are no longer in season. Because as you remember, I told you that fashion is cyclical and there are some things that work in specific times of year, and you might have a narrow window of opportunity where that product is still relevant. And a discount ultimately helps you to clear that stock before you end up waiting and that stock gets no longer usable altogether. It may also allow you to move broken sizes. Perhaps for a specific product category, your merchandising line wasn't done correctly and you ended up ordering too much of a specific size. This allows you to clear up those sizes. It allows you to also put a complete end to a discontinued product that you're no longer providing support for and that you no longer want to have in your catalog. It provides archive sales for customers that are loyal, that rewards these customers through private sales or through smaller, more focused channels. Maybe you have a loyalty program where customers get first come, first serve basis on these heavy discounts. It also allows you to control activity and sales and promotional activity during specific times of year where it makes sense to discount because everyone else is discounting. And if you're doing it, it doesn't distract from your brand value because customers are automatically waiting for that kind of discount And in general, if others are doing it and you know customers are primed to purchase in that time, then it does two things. You're not hurting your brand value because customers are not looking at this discount as a purely your brand thing. And because customers are going to be purchasing anyway and they've mentally prepared, then you actually seize the opportunity at a time of year where discounting is expected without any of the psychological downsides of it. And ultimately, it's not that discounting is the problem. It's lazy demand creation that is the problem. Most brands discount because they simply do not know how to do specific things. They don't know how to create urgency that gets customers to buy a new product once it launches. They don't know how to increase the perceived value of the product through their marketing and their positioning. They don't know how to make a product feel coveted and wanted through clear data and imagery and content that showcases their product. And they don't know how to make customers feel that their product is worth the price. That way they feel encouraged to buy. So they cut price and they use this as a crutch. But a discount should never be your only sales lever. It is the surefire way to spell doom and gloom for your business 6 months, 12 months, 24 months down the line. So you might be asking me, Shadi, then if I can't discount, what should I do? What should I do instead of discounting that's going to help me drive that urgency, make my product feel coveted, increase the perceived value? Well, you're in luck because I have good news for you. Instead of discounting, you have a variety of options available to you. Number one is consider adding value instead of cutting the price. So for example, instead of saying take 20% off a specific product, you might give a free perk over a certain threshold of product purchased. It might be a loyalty membership. It might be free shipping. It might be personalized recommendations of products that customers should buy. It might be a free accessory with a full set. So you might say, buy this full set, increase customer LTV, and then get this accessory in free. Instead of making it seem like a discount, what you're doing is you're encouraging customers to buy more products, and then you're giving them the added value of that accessory product without them needing to pay for it. So you're not even discounting that accessory product, which in this case is these socks, allowing them to feel the full value of the set and the socks and feel like they're really getting their money's worth, as opposed to feeling like they're overpaying for a product because it wasn't discounted. You might offer them a care kit. You might offer them early access to the new collection, especially if you build up that coveted and that wanted feeling for your brand. You might give them a free exchange and a guarantee on the sizing or some form of VIP treatment. This ultimately works because the pricing stays intact and the customers consistently sees the product as full price and full value instead of wishing it was cheaper because there was a discount. Option 2 is to bundle with a purpose. Most people look at bundling as a way to increase customer LTV or lifetime value, and they ultimately do this in a way that's haphazard. Instead of just adding random products together, build a smart bundle that actually has a specific focus. Maybe it's an urban bundle, maybe it's a Pilates bundle, maybe it's a running bundle. It could be a legging and a sports bra set. It could be a running shorts and a running tank set. It could be a hoodie and a jogger warm-up or recovery set. This is a great way to get customers to add products together, to purchase more from you, and to get more value out of it, because sometimes when customers purchase part of a set, they don't complete the ecosystem. It's the same way as buying an AirPods but having a non-Apple iPhone. Yes, the experience is there and you can use your AirPods with a non-Apple iPhone. Yet the product experience is vastly diminished because neither of those two things were meant to work together. But if you buy an iPhone, then you complete that experience and you get that much more value out of the one product you had purchased in the first place. It's the same concept here. Option 3 is to use access instead of discounting. These can be things like early access to a new collection. These can be things like member access to specific perks. These can be things like first look access to see what new and future products are dropping. This could be limited color access to seasonal colors. This is what creates action and increases the value without diminishing value over time. For example, you might say, if we have our loyalty VIP customers, they basically get access to the new drop 24 hours, 48 hours before it goes live. And this works in a compound effect if you've done a great pre-launch strategy where you have the right imagery, you have the right content, you build up the demand, the hype, you've created urgency. This is where that effect compounds. Option 4 is that you want to create real scarcity around specific products. And we've done a video in the past that talks about the hero product in any collection. And this could be a great way to tie in the hero product into how you build value and scarcity with your products. Scarcity only ultimately works once it's believable. When it's not believable, it actually turns customers off and it becomes abundantly clear what you're doing. But when it is real, it is insanely powerful. What you can do is, for example, at a limited batch size. So you could be offering a expanded sizing set and offer limited sizes for those expanded sizes. You could add a seasonal color when there's a restock, specifically what Skims does. They add their core colors and they add their seasonal colors. You could add a final size run for a specific product. Perhaps you don't normally launch your leggings in an 2XL, but you could be doing a small run of those products or that specific sizing because there's been a demand for it. You can add a pre-order window, but give it a limited opportunity or time that closes after a while. And that way, once it's done, and give them some sort of perk like early access because of that pre-order once they've ordered within that window. And then option 5 is you need to improve the proof before lowering the price. Sometimes it's not that the product is too expensive. It's that you haven't done the time to justify and to create the value in the customer's mind. So the customer is left asking, why should I buy this? So what you should ask yourself is, have I shown the fit clearly? If fit is a big part of this product, have I shown it clearly? Have I shown the fabric close up, how it performs, how it wicks, the moisture wickiness, the softness, the shape retention? Have I shown the real movement of the product, especially if I'm operating with knitted fabrics that are meant to be cut close to the body, that are meant to tailor and to taper and to shape the physique? Have I shown customer reviews of people who have actually bought it, different body types, different ethnicities, different sizing? Have I explained what the actual product cost is versus what they're getting? Sometimes a breakdown of what makes a product unique, all the features that are added into it that increases the product cost, makes customers feel like they're getting a better deal as opposed to something that is just generic and off the shelf. Have we shown the product in a way that makes the value obvious? This is akin to designing the most beautiful technical product in the world, but showcasing it in a non-technical setting that doesn't let it shine. And if you are personally struggling, whether you're a new startup brand looking to launch your first collection, and you are deathly afraid of having to discount to move stock, and you want to make sure that you position your product correctly right off the bat, or whether you're an existing brand that is facing these same issues as Under Armour and Nike, and you don't no longer want to mark down your product and to watch your gross profit margins and your net profit margins get eroded season after season, you can check the link in the description to apply to work with us one-on-one. And we will get back to you with a clear production roadmap within literally 5 to 10 minutes. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, please consider smashing a massive thumbs up. It really helps us out and it keeps us motivated to keep pumping out this content for you. And I say this from the very bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Fit Design TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.